We are thrilled that you are here today with us for a conversation with the Federal Transit Administration. With us to discuss some of the opportunities and challenges for public transportation is FTA Acting Administrator Carolyn Flowers. And as we all know, Carolyn joined the FTA as Senior Advisor in January of 2015 and was appointed FTA Deputy Administrator on April 18th of this year, and is the acting administrator carrying out all of the responsibilities that she carries with the Federal Transit Administration. Together, the Federal Transit Administration is implementing an annual budget of over $10 billion, get the right number of zeros in there. And it's a great thrill to be here with Carolyn. I asked if I had to you heard of the voice check, do I have to refer to Carolyn as acting administrator or administrator? And Carolyn and I have been friends for a very long time. We first worked together in Los Angeles when she was with Los Angeles Metro. She's gone on to do a variety of things, including serving as Chief Executive Officer here in Charlotte, and then moving on to the Federal Transit Administration. I had a note here in the script, and I thought, boy, if I say this, Carolyn's probably going to come up and hit me. It says, Ms. Flowers' decades-long career in serving the public transit provides the FTA invaluable insight and guidance. I agree with the insight and guidance part. With Carolyn, we know you started when you were 12, so I guess that's decades long. So it's great stuff here. As has become our custom for the FTA sessions, Carolyn will make some opening remarks, and then she and her team, who are seated in the front row here, will respond to various questions that we'll pose from the audience. With the passage of the Fixing America's Surface Transportation, or FAST Act, the FTA has a key role in guiding FTA's implementation of its transit-related provisions, overseeing the development and guidance in safety oversight. Please help me in giving a warm welcome to our good friend, Carolyn Flowers.
Thank you, Doran. I'm still in my first decade here. It's great to be here with you all today, and I want to first to recognize the efforts of my old friends here at CATS for planning a successful conference, and I wanted to say congratulations to Larry Koff and the entire CATS team for pulling this off. So thank you. And I want to say, from my own personal experience, from being here in Charlotte, it's a city that's both welcoming and inclusive. And it's a real pleasure to be back. Today I want to give you an overview of some of the important work that's being done at FTA, but I also want to be relatively brief. I know that I'm standing between you and happy hour. So spend a happy hour with me, and then you'll get another happy hour. Anyway, so let's start out by talking about some of our new surface transportation authorization, the Fixing America's Surface Transportation Act, as Doran said, better known as the FAST Act. It authorizes transit programs for 5 years through September 30th, 2020, and provides an additional $1 billion a year for public transportation, or roughly an 8% increase. But I don't want to suggest that it completely satisfies the funding levels and needs that the Obama administration or APTA asked for. It is an improvement, beginning most importantly with the addition of the new bus discretionary program. So let's talk about bus and bus facilities. Adding back a competitive component to our bus and bus facilities program corrects a major shortcoming of MAP 21, and it's a direct result of APTA and FTA working together, shoulder to shoulder, to promote and advocate. It starts at $213 million in FY16 and increases to $289 million by FY 2020. We just closed the NOFO last Friday, and I got some preliminary statistics, and it is mind-boggling. We have almost $1.67 billion in requests for $213 million in available funding. And Bruce, I can't remember the number for NOLO. It's $55 million available for NOLO. 520 million in applications. So anyway, you know it's very competitive and you know that it was really needed. So it's helped us deploy, the NOLO program is helping us deploy energy savings and low emission technologies to transit fleets across the country, and that we will work to continue these competitively awarded grants. In any case, we're going to work hard to get these awards out quickly. We do have a statutory limitation on us as to when we can award those, so you can look for those probably in late summer. These competitive programs are in addition to an increase in the formula funding and several changes that make it easier to pool resources at the state level. Another fact is our 5310 program, Enhanced Mobility for Seniors and Individuals with Disabilities. Formula funding also increased in this area from $258 million in FY 2015, it grows to $286 million in 2020. Sounds like the same number. Anyway, I'll have to confirm that. The FAST Act also supports our Rides to Wellness initiative with a new discretionary pilot program to better coordinate access and mobility with non-emergency medical providers. It's funded at $2 million in FY16 and grows to $3.5 million in FY 2020. And as you've heard over the past year, there's more than 3.6 million Americans that already miss or delay non-emergency medical treatment every year simply because they lack transportation. FTA's Ride to Wellness initiative is bringing together federal agencies and stakeholders from the transit and healthcare industries to overcome the barriers that are preventing more people from accessing medical services. In the rural and tribal transit, our 5311 program, for those of you who rely on FTA's funding for rural and tribal areas, you'll be glad to know that in the FAST Act, formula funding is increased under this section. Rural formula grants increase each year from $543 million in FY15 to $604 million in 2020. The tribal program jumps $30 million to $35 million in FY16 and beyond, and $5 million of that is set aside for discretionary grants. For our capital investment grant program, Section 5309, there have been some important changes in this program. That is our New Starts, Small Starts, and Core Capacity programs. Most relevant for you, the FAST Act changes the threshold for small start projects from $250 million capital costs to $300 million. And the threshold for the CIG funds used has been increased from $75 million to $100 million. And I know that's pretty important because a lot of you are thinking about BRT projects. We've seen transit agencies successfully use the small start funding to launch those projects across the country. For workforce development, the FAST Act brings mixed news. Let's be clear, this is going to be an area of major concern for our industry as more than a third of our workforce reaches retirement age in the next 10 years. And there aren't enough younger employees in the pipeline to replace them, much less meet the growing demand. The bad news is the FAST Act combined workforce development, technical assistance activities, and the National Transit Institute into one category, Section 5314. So that means that we're going to have to make some difficult trade-offs, quite possibly seek additional funding from Congress on a year-by-year basis to fill those gaps. The good news, however, is that the FTA recipients of urbanized area, state of good repair, and bus facility grants can now use 0.5% of their allocation for human resources and training, in addition to 0.5% for NTI training. That may not sound like a lot, and I know it's difficult when you're all trying to balance your budgets, but across the nation, that is almost $76 million that's now available to support local workforce development, training, and education if an agency can do so. That change should help us address the looming shortage of transportation workers, but we need to be talking more about the urgent issue in the months to come. So that's a quick overview of changes in the FAST Act that might affect you. And if you'd like to get more details, we can talk about those today, or you can check out our website for additional information. Well, let's talk about ridership. The predictability and certainty of a long-term authorization will help us meet the challenges ahead. As you know, after a decade of growing ridership, we saw a decline last year. What's worse is that much of the loss was among bus services, actually offsetting increases in heavy, light, and commuter rail. Part of this may be due to the fact that the price of gasoline has fallen and stayed under $2 a gallon for a long time. But we need to ask whether we're providing the services the riders need, ones that are reliable and timely. As for safety, I'm living that now with Washington Metro. Obviously, we have to get our fundamentals right, beginning with an unrelenting focus on safety. At FTA, we're working to put in place our safety rulemakings, including agency safety plans. The agency safety plan will be required for all public transit agencies, and if you had a chance to review the NPRM, you know that it's emphasized the establishment of safety management systems. We're encouraging bus transit systems to go ahead and begin implementing SMS in a timely manner that fits your system, whatever its size. We're continuing to develop SMS technical assistance materials and bring training to you across the country, whether in classrooms or on the web. We're also begun research on the serious issue of operator assaults, and we're conducting an online dialogue to get your input as we carry that forward. I want to also touch on mobility on demand. In addition to the fundamentals like safety, we'll also have to meet the changing expectation of riders, particularly those who have a wide range of options to choose from. So we've taken a stance of embracing rather than turning away from the new technology that can help us do that. That's why Secretary Fox has launched the Smart City Challenge. Seeing the innovation happening across America, the optimism and the ingenuity of cities throughout the country, he said, let's challenge those cities to do more. We had over 77 cities that applied for the Smart City Challenge. 78 cities that applied for the Smart City Challenge. And it's a truly exciting and unanticipated response level. It's talking about looking at fully integrated, first-of-a-kind city that brings together data, technology, and creative thinking to shape how we move people and goods in the cities of tomorrow. So 7 finalists are now competing for over $40 million in funding, including Austin, Texas, Columbus, Ohio, Denver, Colorado, Kansas City, Missouri, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Portland, Oregon, and San Francisco, California. The Secretary is actually out visiting all these cities this week as he looks at the finalists before they make a selection. It's a great start, but we also need to address convenience and access from the standpoint of the individual rider. At FTA, we're advancing a model called Mobility on Demand Sandbox that helps ensure quality, carefree transportation choices that are available to everyone, everywhere, all the time. So on May 3rd, we announced the launch of our Mobility on Demand Sandbox program. The goal is to not only improve the customer experience, but also make our industry more efficient and better integrated across various modes. We're talking about smartphone apps, innovative approaches to fare payment, connected vehicles and infrastructure, and shared use and on-demand service, among other things. We have $8 million in funding available for this program, so I encourage you to check it out and apply before the deadline, which is July 5th. It's also imperative that we figure out how innovation can help us solve old, intractable problems in new ways. That includes recognizing that new transportation network companies such as Lyft and Uber actually have an incentive to help get more cars off the road and make better use of existing roadways. At the same time, we have to remain cognizant that these solutions are not without their own issues of access and equity, and that transit must continue to provide ladders of opportunity to everyone in every neighborhood. So in closing, I spoke some today about the FAST Act and how your advocacy was so important in bringing about its positive changes. Unfortunately, we can't put our heads back in the sand and worry about something else for the next 5 years. On the contrary, we have to continue that advocacy and make sure that between now and then, the transit industry gets the resources it so badly needs, and that the next reauthorization strengthens us further in order to serve those who we rely on. And so, my homework assignment for you, because the Deputy Secretary has given me this assignment too, is let's keep pushing ahead, moving America forward. So I want to thank you, and we're glad to take the questions. I'm here with my FTA team. We have representatives from planning, programming, oversight, safety, procurement, research, and from Region 4 in Atlanta. So thank you so much for having us with you today. Don't ask hard questions.
Where's the fun in that? All right, we've got a couple of mics set up, and we have our many colleagues from FTA here with loads and loads of expertise. So feel free to come on up as you have questions. But Carolyn, I'm going to start off. You touched on so many different themes that we could explore. One of the areas that is fascinating, exciting, and at the same time challenging is the whole evolution of mobility on demand, the introduction of the transportation network companies like Uber and Lyft and others. And they provide both opportunities, but again, not necessarily lining up with some of the framework that we've historically seen. What are your thoughts on those organizations and how we might move forward with partnering or working with those transportation network companies?
Well, I think the key there is partnering. And we are putting the Mobility on Demand sandbox out there because we realize there are issues and regulations and the issues of equity that we're facing. And so we want to try to put out some pilot programs to see what we need to do to maybe adjust the regulations and ensure that we're moving forward with the changes in technology, and also looking at how people are using public transit. And so public transit now, I think, is a much broader, I think we were looking at traditional transit as a way that we're delivering the services now, but there are so many options to the user. I'm sitting in Washington, D.C. without a car, and so I have my transit pass, I have Uber, I have Lyft, I have a membership to Zipcar, and there are options out there. And even when I went to Texas to visit, I took this other service called Wings that just goes between airports and downtowns. So there are a lot of options out there for users now, and they want to have the flexibility to move around in different ways than our traditional networks have provided in the past.
Certainly presents a whole new menu of choices.
Yes.
And again, it's about mobility in the end. But,
yes, and there's a lot of agencies out here who are actually partnering with those transportation network companies to provide those services and provide partnerships, and especially on the first and last mile challenge that many of us have.
It's great stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think coming together and being able to learn from each other as we go through and explore these new options is really exciting. One of the areas, one of the roles that I play is to serve as the chair of the Board of Directors of Access Services, which is the countywide paratransit operation. You know it well, yes, coming from Los Angeles. It's a big and complex challenge to meet the paratransit needs of Los Angeles, but I think that plays itself out across our industry in cities that are large and small. staying on this theme of transportation network companies, one of the things we've been talking about is the changes, and again, this new service model, but particularly as it relates to paratransit. What are your thoughts in terms of how that has both opportunity and challenge?
I think there's the issues that we want to make sure we address are inclusiveness and equity. Yes.
Yes.
And we want to make sure that those who need the services will be able to use those services. And I think that's the challenge that we're looking at in terms of these transportation network companies coming in and having accessible vehicles. And so I think that is one of the challenges that we're going to have to work through to ensure that if we're going to integrate those services into our structure, that we're making sure that we're still providing the services and that we're still complying with the ADA.
Critical elements, and I know that that's very near and dear to the hearts of all of us that provide those services, is making sure that we do have that inclusiveness, but certainly some challenges there.
I think it is a large challenge because we're looking at an aging population.
Absolutely.
I said I only had 1 decade, but there's still a couple other decades that I was hiding.
You're far from done.
So,
lots more to
but
do.
the aging population
Sure.
is one that we have to really try to address.
Well, and from a cost standpoint as well, cost is certainly from a local standpoint a huge factor as we meet the needs of that aging population. I think we've got to be innovative and creative in terms of how we deliver that service, and at the same time realize that resources are very scarce.
I know probably everyone in this room has that challenge because, fixed route, the difference between fixed route and paratransit is a huge gap.
Big gap, absolutely. Plays itself out. Cool. All right. Let's shift gears for a minute and talk about state of good repair for a little bit. And state of good repair is certainly something that is important to our industry. As you've pointed out, the needs are significantly more than the dollars that we've got available. I know there have been some changes related to remanufactured vehicles and some changes that have come into play. Can you share with us a little bit, or your colleagues, about some of those things that help extend our...
My colleague, Bruce.
Great. Yeah, let's get the team involved here. Can we get the mic on for Bruce in the front here?
This is Bruce Robinson from our Transportation Programming Group, Associate Administrator.
Where there's a will, there's a way. We'll get a hot mic here.
Well, we haven't changed any policy at this time. The policy hasn't been changed. We proposed policy. We have what's it called? It was the Grants Management Circular. It's now called the Award Administrative Requirements Circular. You may know it as the Circular 5010. We put that out for notice and comment. Comments were due several weeks ago. We received a number of comments related to the remanufactured vehicles. But really what we were looking at is what requirement, generally our circular talked about bus acquisitions just in general and said if you do a bus acquisition, it has to comply with Buy America, it has to comply with requirements related to useful life. We were receiving questions in terms of how that circular applied to remanufactured or used vehicles that people may be purchasing, what requirements applied to those vehicles. So we try to clarify the definition of what a remanufactured vehicle was, distinguishing that from rebuilds. Rebuilds have always been eligible within our program, and we try to describe what types of requirements would apply. And then when we went out for the Federal Register, we specifically sought comment in terms of what federal requirements should apply to remanufactured vehicles. So right now we're reviewing the comments before we finalize the policy.
Great. I appreciate that update. And again, I think we're all looking at a number of creative ways to maintain that state of good repair, and appreciate that dialogue and that path forward. So great stuff. On another topic, for years and years, well, it seems like years and years, we've all talked about team, and we all knew what team was, and now we're trying to strike team out of our vocabulary and have this new word, trams, that we're all learning. How are things going with trams and the implementation and the rollout? Anything you can share with us there? I think
Bruce will be speaking again.
There we go.
So trams, as all of you know, we rolled that out in this well, this spring, and we've been awarding grants. I think we have about 600 applications that are in the system. As with any new system, we were expecting to have some issues and hiccups. We're trying to work through those issues with any particular grant that has a problem. But so far, TRAMS is up and running, and we're awarding grants. One of the advantages with TRAM that we've already noticed is that you can combine different types of funding into one grant. In-house, we call those super grants, but that reduces the number of grants that any transit agency has to apply for. And if you have fewer grants, that's fewer grants that you then have to do your quarterly reporting on as well. So we've successfully awarded several of the super grants as well.
Great. Flexibility is a good thing. Appreciate that. We at Foothill Transit, we have our finance team handles our grants management process, and for the most part, I haven't heard them coming up screaming at me about how TRAMS is making them crazy. So that's usually a good sign from where I sit. So appreciate that evolution. Carolyn, you talked about the Rides to Wellness initiative, and certainly something that we've heard FTA talk about for some time as being a very important activity. Could you expand a little bit more on how that's unfolding and the good things that are coming through?
Well, I'd like Mary Leary to chime in on this one. We had a session here on Saturday morning, and she can update you on the outcome of that session.
Great.
And what is planned in the next few months.
Super. Mary.
Well, I'll mention that a really exciting activity that we're going to be doing on behalf of Rides to Wellness that started with Therese McMillan is a TRB has a connection as well. There's Institute of Medicine, which is now the Health and Medical Division. So on June 6th and 7th, we're going to be doing an exciting event with TRB and IOM and now HMD. That will be webcast as well, so you can participate in it. We want to look at what the performance measures are and what the value proposition is and return on investment for these partnerships between health and wellness providers and transportation. And there's a whole host of other Rides to Wellness activities that, if it's okay, I'd like to let Mary Ann Stock talk about.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. We did, as Carolyn mentioned, we had an event here on Saturday that was one of our Rides to Wellness forums. We're doing a number of those all around the country. We still, if you didn't get a chance to participate on Saturday, there's another one coming up in Portland next week associated with the CTAA Expo, and then there'll be another one in Kansas City in August, and several more that are to be scheduled over the course of the next year or so. And what they are is that we are hosting conversations between the healthcare industry and public transit CEOs, and we usually bring in a panel of healthcare practitioners. On Saturday, we had a couple of nurse practitioners who came in and talked to us about their challenges and their opportunities with actually providing transportation for their patients. And it was really eye-opening, and we had a great exchange about how they've learned about the transit in their communities and what transit can do for them to make it easier for them to help their patients access public transit and ultimately get better health by being able to get to their medical appointments. We also, the initiative, besides these conversations that we're having, the initiative also includes some research that we're doing, as Mary mentioned, one project, and we have another project that's getting underway that we call our community scan, where we're going to be surveying, again, healthcare providers to learn, hopefully to collect some real quantitative data about the cost to the healthcare sector when people cannot access healthcare through transportation, and how many people miss their medical appointments because they don't have transportation, and what does that actually cost in terms of additional healthcare that may be needed because they weren't able to access preventive care or screenings that they may have needed. So we're getting that research project underway, and hopefully it should take about a year, and then we'll have some really good data to help us approach this issue further.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I forgot that Mary is now over on research, and you have the Rides to Wellness.
Lots of changes. That's great, though. Thank you for sharing that. And it's, I was having a conversation with one of our colleagues right before this program, and we were talking about what we all collectively, all of us, do. And in my mind, what we do together is we help make people's lives better. And this Rides to Wellness program, I think, is a great example of that. In my free time, what little there is of it, one of the things I do is I serve on the board of directors of our local community health center, which is a federally qualified health program, providing health care to those that are uninsured and underinsured. And public transportation is a critical linkage to allowing people to access those programs. We opened up a new clinic about a year ago, and it's right on a major transit line. And so I'm excited about that, but I also appreciate hearing about the initiative, because every time I hear it, I think, wow, I need to go back and we need to do more, because it's a never-ending battle. We've got to make sure people can access those great services. Normally, I would, and I think many of us start with safety. Safety is the number one priority. Again, at our organization, we've continued to try to reinforce safety as a critical element of our culture. It's the thing that we all have to be really, really honed in on. And Carolyn, I know safety's been a big priority for FTA. You've had a lot of programs, and the new SMS requirements are coming forward. There's been a lot of support. Can you expand a little bit, or your colleagues, about some of the specific activities that are going on there and the things we need to be aware of as we move forward?
I'll say a couple of things, and then I'd like Lynn Spencer to jump in. Under MAP 21, FTA has an expanded role in safety, and under FAST, some of those authorities were clarified. And so we're taking on a lot of new responsibility. We're putting out the rules and regulations. We're trying to implement SMS. And we've also actually taken over a state safety oversight role with Washington Metro, which is
a new role.
Quite a new role. But under the FAST Act, we have the ability to withhold funds. We can actually step in if there's a non-functioning state oversight agency, and we can also close down a system if we see that it's unsafe. And so those are things that we're actually, implementing in Washington, D.C. in our oversight role. But I'll let Lynn talk to you about our SMS and other programs. She's been involved in trying to ensure that we push this out into the industry.
And absolutely, and I know, Lynn, you did a great program early in our conference here to get the message out. We can reinforce some of the things that you talked about there.
Indeed, there's a lot of interest in where we're going with safety management systems. So we've been very engaged the last several years in developing our rulemakings, which all were published. Our proposed rulemakings all were published in the last year. We just closed public comment on several of them, and we are quickly working to finalize all but the state safety oversight rule, which was finalized. So we're busy at work in that, and we're also very busy working with partners in the industry on our SMS pilot program. So we are working with a multimodal rail agency. We're getting ready to work with a mid-sized bus agency and some small bus agencies to test the tools and procedures and documents that we've developed to help agencies transition to more formal safety management systems. And so we're learning a lot through these SMS pilot programs. It's allowing us to finesse our tools that we'll be making available to the industry at large, so that you have an easier time working through SMS implementation. We're also very busy developing the safety training that will support this transition to safety management systems. So our interim provisions are currently in effect. I think there's a 3-year period for those interim provisions where we have safety training to assure that those that are overseeing safety at agencies, perhaps at the state and even at the federal level, have at least a minimum level of training. That is optional for bus, but strongly encouraged. And in our final training rule, you'll see more training developed to assist you in ensuring that all of your people have the competencies that are needed to operate a really strong safety management system. So we expect to see more courses developed on hazard analysis, risk mitigation, safety assurance functions, to really strengthen how we do safety. We are doing so much safety already, doing these activities to ensure that our safety is working well for us and getting our agencies to where we want them to be, and showing the improvements in our safety performance that we're looking for is the goal. So we're very busy. Do check our website as we develop more information, whether it's guidance information or SMS safety framework. You can find it all on our website, and we look forward to just moving the safety bar forward.
And we
Upward.
just started publishing a newsletter. We had our first newsletter out, and I think we're going to be publishing at least monthly initially, and then go to a quarterly basis.
Yep, the TSO Spotlight. So do look for that. You can also find that on our website, as well as some YouTubes of our recent webinars discussing some of the safety rulemakings and where we're going with SMS and the transit agency safety plans. So it's a very exciting time.
Great, thank you. I'm sure we're going to continue that dialogue as we go forward. Certainly appreciate all the hard work that's happening there, and I think safety. It's always got to be our first priority, given what we're doing. Len, you mentioned training, which really leads me to another topic. And Carolyn, you and I have worked together on the Leadership APTA committee. We're both proud graduates, and you served for a number of years on the oversight of Leadership APTA, one of the premier workforce development programs. But there are so many workforce needs, all the way from senior level, all the way to frontline, and everything in between. You touched on some of both the challenges and the opportunities related to workforce development, but could you expand a little bit on that in terms of how we address this huge need for workforce development throughout our industry?
Well, I'm going to say a few words, and then this is where Mary is.
All right.
But, in my speech, I talked about the challenges of talking about the aging out of our workforce, and how we need to do training to bring in new members of our workforce. But anyway, Mary is working on several programs. We're trying to optimize the funding that we have. We're trying to leverage the experience that we've had with our grant programs and look at ways that we can offer additional information because we do not have the funding that we need to continue the level of grants that we had in the past. So let Mary talk about where we're going from here.
Well, we're really excited about the Workforce Initiative because there are $20 million worth of grants that we have issued over about the last 4 years. And what we're going to be doing on June 7th is bring all of our grantees together to try to create a community of practice and some peer-to-peer sharing, because the innovation is happening with all of you. I sat in on a workforce panel this morning and was just so impressed at these exciting activities. There was one activity that was associated with teaching high schoolers, and it was here in Charlotte, getting high schoolers ready to go into careers in maintenance. So we think there are a lot of examples of very, very innovative, useful, sustainable, and replicable workforce programs all across the country. So what we want to do in bringing the peer-to-peer sharing together is figure out what those are, and we're really appreciative the National Transit Institute is actually driving this for us and hosting it for us. We will have a proceedings document that will result. We will be also leveraging Federal Highways, has a whole group of workforce centers. We're going to create a clearinghouse on there, and we're going to push out all the information, all of the deliverables of these $20 million worth of grantees so that you can have access to it. We'll publicize it widely. We'll make sure that we get some newsletters out. And then the other thing that we're doing is we're going to be hosting it. We'll be in Washington. So we have a great opportunity to bring across our federal partners. So we've had some dialogue with the Department of Labor. There's a requirement in the FAST Act for us to harmonize performance measures for workforce programs, both within our areas and transportation side and within theirs. So we're really looking forward to that. We're going to do a lot during that January 7th day, and Carolyn will be kicking off the event. June, yes. Right. Moving forward. A lot going on these days. June 7th, thank you.
That's great, and we really appreciate all the energy and effort that's going into that, and we got to stretch those dollars collectively as far as we can, because there's an awful lot of need there. So I know y'all aren't shy. Nobody's come up to the front here, but I know this group. There's got to be some. Oh, here we go. All right, bring it on. Some burning questions, and if you would introduce yourself, so we all know who we're chatting with.
Hi, I'm Matthew Frazier from Go Triangle. So I'm not exactly an expert on the NTD program. We have another department in my agency who handles the actual NTD reporting, but from what I can tell, it's mostly reporting on, service area population, safety incidents, ridership, raw service provided. And one of the things that I see kind of being missing from that is data on service reliability. So how many fixed route trips got canceled or showed up late or had early departures, and then also data on service frequency. It doesn't, like if you have 10 buses all making the same trip at the same time down a street, you could be running amazing frequency, or you could be running like 10 buses that are mostly empty. And so I guess the question is, well, could NTD include more reporting on frequency and reliability and other service quality issues, both as a way to incentivize agencies to focus on improving those things, and also to help encourage data exchange about, what strategies are working, what aren't? Hey, you got 95% on-time performance. How?
Well, that's a good question, and I can't actually answer it myself because, and I have to probably take that back. I don't think there's anybody in the front row here that can answer that question. I know that from running an agency, that is something that we looked at in terms of our performance metrics and key performance indicators. But I don't know how we're going to do it at the federal level. So let me talk to, it's probably our IT group that I need to talk to, and our budget group that has that information, and I don't have anyone here from there. So we can take that back, and we can promise to give that information to APTA so we can get it back to you.
All right, that's fair. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Hunter Harvath, Monterey Salinas Transit. I wasn't going to mention anything, but since you did bring up trams, I just wanted to give you a little bit of feedback and then make a request. We have submitted our 5307 grant, and our regional office made a slight mistake with processing it or filling out their part of the trams form, and cannot undo that mistake and resubmit it. It has to go to the trams help desk. And the trams help desk, when they called, when our region called, they said they had a 2-week backlog in work orders. And so that obviously was very frustrating for us, because that's about 1/4 of our budget is our 5307 for operating assistance. So I guess my request to you would be, please give some assistance and resources to the trams help desk. My other request would be, when we were informed with this, we had the option of starting over from scratch with a brand new grant number and creating the grant again. And I told my grants manager, oh, well, that's easy, just copy your existing application like you could do in Team. Well, either she couldn't figure out how to do it, or Trams does not allow you to do that. And so that would have been a lot more effort for her, and it turned out we would have to go back to DOL. Anyways, so I said, we'll just wait. That's been more than 2 weeks ago, and I don't know where that issue is right now. But as far as the backlog at the help desk, please give some resources to the help desk. And if there's any way to make some adjustments to the Trams program so you can copy an existing application, that would be helpful, I think, for the users. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do we have anything, Bruce, that you wanted to say?
Yeah, the help desk, that is actually an area that we're working on, trying to get them more resources. They're working through the contracting issues to try to add more in that area. I can have my staff look at that particular issue with your grant. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, man. I'm going to get a...
Uh-oh. You're gonna get a taken number machine.
I'm not going to do that, but we are... And as we went through the process, developing trams, we did try to reach out to transit agencies. We had a lot of transit agencies who participated in training. We got a lot of feedback at that time on things we wanted to improve. So I'm not sure exactly about the replicability of grants, but we do have a lot of list of improvements that we've identified that we want to make to trams. And as people are working on grants, if they have other ideas, we're still collecting those. So trams will be with us for a very long period of time. We had Team, 15, 20 years. So we will continue to improve trams, try to make it better.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Jessica Sweeney. I'm from Lilly Systems.
And I'm actually wanted to share something that came up in the earlier software and data session this afternoon. And that was that some of the operators shared that the procurement processes can be problematic and have the effect of restricting innovation. And someone mentioned that there was an update to the best practices procurement manual. And I wondered if you could comment on some of the thinking about moving procurement to a position that supports a more iterative or a more agile kind of process.
Mr. Jim Harper from our procurement group will respond to that question.
Good afternoon. The best practices manual is under construction. We're looking to have it issued this summer. The issue that you brought up is new to me, and so we'll speak with you afterwards. The agility and ability to move procurement is a slow-moving process. Many of the requirements are levied by the Congress of the United States. Then we put those into action, into measurable actions for grantees through the circular. So much of that is out of my control, but we will speak with you afterwards on the particular issue.
You know, I also wanted to talk about our mobility on demand sandbox, because that is one of the things that we're trying to look at is procurements and some of the issues that we faced in the past. And so this is why we want to try some of these pilot programs to see if we can actually address those type of issues. So, yes, sir.
I think you're live.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Clinton Forbes from West Palm Beach, Florida. Participated this on Sunday morning, early Sunday morning, in a very engaging conversation and presentation by your Office of Program Oversight, where we learned trends in triennial reviews, that nationwide there are about almost 7 findings per agency, on average, which was interesting information. One thing that transit leaders look forward to are negotiations every 3 years and triennial reviews every 3 years. Not really.
Been there, done that.
Clinton, I'm glad you said it and I didn't, but okay.
We try to be a learning organization, try to be proactive. And one thing that, transit leaders do when they join agencies, and even in that 3-year cycle, we go back to make sure that, any findings were followed up on before you get back the next 3 years. And so it would be helpful, and I think we talked about this a little in the session, for FTA to consider some type of repository of findings across the country so that we can be more proactive with addressing issues before you get there. And, we could, redact the names to protect the innocent. We don't need to know which transit agencies had what findings, but it would be helpful to have some type of website where we can go and look at some of the findings and learn from them so we don't make the same mistakes. Thank you.
I'm going to have John Bodner talk to you. And that is one of the reasons why we're doing the data analytics, so we know what are the trends, and so we know which areas to focus technical assistance on and training. And so we've been doing a lot of work to try to improve the consistency and transparency after having very in-depth discussions with APTA about the triennial process. And so I've been deeply involved in that, and John and his group has done a lot of work to try to bring us along in that area. So, John, can you?
Right, and so one of the things that we've been working on is really taking a closer, harder look at the data that we collect during all these reviews and finding stuff that we hope is useful to the transit industry. And we've begun sharing that information in venues like this, and hopefully we'll be able to continue doing that. But we can certainly look at other ways to make sure that information is more widely dispersed and use the tools at our disposal to do so. So whether that's the web or some other means, we can we can try to make that happen.
Thank
Great.
you.
Yeah, Carolyn, from yeah, we've had a lot of discussions about the triennial review process, and we certainly understand, I think, from an industry standpoint, that it's very important, and it is a learning opportunity, as Clinton indicated. I think as we go through each triennial, each property does that, there are chances to learn. It provides that great venue. At the same time, it's a challenging process, and I appreciate the dialogue to be able to figure out, how do we get to those best practices? How do we make that learning as beneficial as we possibly can as we go forward? And look forward to continuing that discussion as we move ahead. Peter.
Yeah, I was at that session where Mr. Bodnar was talking about it, and I also got from him this issue of being able to collaborate to be able to improve on the systems together. And, I offered my assistance to him, and I think there's some transit systems that can work with you to make sure that as we move forward and improve on the systems, we can sharpen those tools. And so I stand again here offering my help in that area, just as you suggested. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
That's great. All right. Other questions? Carol.
Hi, Carol Wright from Easter Seals and co-director of the National Aging and Disability Transportation Center in Washington, D.C. I was really impressed with your comment that you made during your speech today and during the questioning about the use of Uber and Lyft and other transit network companies. I think we want to embrace the new technologies that are out there. They certainly are doing things that are successful for them. And if we can learn from those things that they're doing, and if we can embrace the wide variety of transportation options that are out there, we increase options for everyone, which is a good thing. I just want to applaud your statement, which you made more than once, in terms of that we really have to be concerned about the equity of transportation. And I really encourage the transit agencies who are using Uber and Lyft for their first mile, last mile, and any other kinds of partnerships to please keep that in mind on a regular basis, because the transit network companies are not always accessible, and that we keep in mind that accessibility remains an important feature for older adults and people with disabilities.
I want to emphasize our Mobility on Demand sandbox does have inclusiveness as a criteria.
Art.
Yeah, on this subject of the evolving nature of public transportation, and it's as much change going on now as there has been. But the sandbox that you have, Carolyn, that's going to bring forth a bunch of new ideas that are going to press the envelope, possibly go beyond what we considered public transportation before, right? So I'm wondering, the output of that, when it's all done, is that going to lay on the table some things that say these don't meet the traditional definition of public transportation? They're not eligible for the formula, for example. But are they going to bring questions to say, how are we going to figure this out in the future? Do we need a different kind of way to figure out what meets the definition? A pretty provocative question. Again, I say that on the side of change and needing to figure out how to position ourselves in that change. But I'm thinking there's going to be some questions that come out of this that it's better we understand earlier rather than later.
That is exactly what our expectations are, that we will know what rules or regulations might need changing, or what paradigms need to be shifted. And so this is a way for us to get out there and get an understanding of what might need to be changed. We may need to change some procurement actions or regulations. So I think this is a chance for us to find out, the direction and look at what options there might be for change in the future and what we might need to do to accommodate those changes in the future.
Paul, I'm going to let you get the second to the last question because I'm going to reserve the last question for myself.
Thank you. Paul Jablonski, San Diego. Carolyn, thank you for coming to the conference. I know that you're under a lot of pressure in D.C. to straighten out WMATA, and I can't think of a better person to be in your seat right now to do that. Anyway.
The grimace. Thanks.
My question is on safety and rail safety. And there are a few systems, and as you know, California has a very progressive rail safety oversight with the PUC, et cetera. But there are systems like San Diego and others where we have both the FRA and the PUC coming to visit us often. And we're seeing sometimes now that there is conflict. And I'm wondering, is FTA being proactive in reaching out with the FRA to try to understand what some of those conflict points are and provide direction maybe from Washington to the PUC on which way they should be looking at things?
I think the challenge is that, we FRA and FTA have different statutory regulations. And, the Secretary has wanted us to harmonize, and he's looking at more of a one DOT approach. But sometimes the laws are standing in, as being the obstacle for us actually doing that harmonization. So in a lot of areas on the environmental side and some other areas, we are looking at ways that we can harmonize. So it depends on what our statutory regulations say and whether or not we can actually, combine those or look at ways that we can consolidate our efforts. We're trying to be, I think, a little more cognizant of the issues of the differences between what FTA and FRA are doing. We're working pretty closely together on Washington Metro, so maybe that is going to be the model to move us forward. But if you are coming into issues, I'm sorry, my throat. If you're, encountering issues where there's conflict, please let us know, and so that we can try to work it out up at the DOT level.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Especially when you're trying to open a new system.
Well, as our time here comes to a close, I'm reminded of I'm reminded of happy hour, of course. I have one more question for you, and we'll see how concise you can be, so we can get to happy hour. But there will be a small election that'll happen later on this year, and while we don't know what the outcome of that election will be, the Obama administration will come to a close. As you look to that date coming and the remaining months, what are some of the key things that you and the team are going to be focused on during that period?
Well, the Secretary is very focused on, us getting out all of our discretionary grants.
We like that.
Yeah, so FTA has put all of its discretionary grants, or we call them competitive grants, on the streets now. And so that's one of the key pushes for us. Safety, of course. Yep. We're trying to finish up all of our safety regulations and get those out. Hopefully this summer there will be several other regulations coming out. So our rulemaking is really important to us. And then, of course, ladders of opportunities, trying to institutionalize that to make sure that those programs continue after this administration. And then we've been focused on technology. And trying to integrate technology into everything that we're doing. You'll see the focus across the agency on, driverless cars, automated vehicles. So we're looking at how we integrate technology, and that's our mobility on demand focus in FTA. So those are the key things that we're trying to do before this administration winds down.
It's an ambitious work plan. Lots to do.
We're busy.
Well, that's great. Carolyn, we're so grateful.
And Rise to Wellness.
Rise to Wellness, that's right. It's in there. We are so grateful that you were able to have so many of your colleagues join us here, and we thank you all for being our partners and interacting with us here, supporting us in the great work that we do as part of the industry. Carolyn, we couldn't be more fortunate to have you leading the FTA during this critical time. Your knowledge of our industry, your vision for the future, we thank you so much. Let's give all of our FTA colleagues a big round.
Thank you, FTA team.
Well, as Carolyn indicated, we've put in an hour, and now it's time for happy hours or whatever it is that we'll be doing. If Carolyn was still in Charlotte, she'd say go out and spend lots of money and eat in all the restaurants, but you don't have to say that anymore exactly.
I'll say that.
You'll say that anyway?
They need the money for transit.
There we go.
That
All
half
right.
cent.
So enjoy all that Charlotte has to offer this evening. But make sure you get plenty of rest because we have an absolutely jam-packed day tomorrow. Lots of breakout sessions, lots of knowledge exchange, lots to do. And of course, we have the fabulous Rodeo Awards Banquet tomorrow evening. So thank you all. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Oop, oop.
Doctor, my eyes have seen the years.